Thank you very much, Dalia, for joining us here on TRT World. Now, it's not a great question to begin with. How much worse could the world's worst humanitarian crisis get?
Before what, I think, is the deeper question. The UN has been warning about the atrocities in Yemen since the past 7.5 years, and they've continued to get worse. We know that this war has led to the death of almost 400,000 people, 25% of whom are children. We talk about vulnerability and hunger. Says that 5 million are at immediate risk of slipping into hunger. And we're talking about children here, with 8 million receiving food rations that are going to be reduced. When we think about what food ration reduction means, that means you're reducing food rations from 1,500 calories to less than 1,000. So you're not even able to keep people alive at the bare minimum anymore, but you don't want to be the direct cause of their starvation. And so what we're seeing is that the atrocities in Yemen are not just because of the war, but because of the implications of the war. This is a war where we've seen that the Saudi-led coalition, supported by the United States and many other countries, has led to the bombing of ports, the bombing of hospitals, the bombing of infrastructure, which has complicated this. Add to the pandemic of the past 2 years, when the UN calls every year, just about this time, for the hunger crisis happening in Yemen, and the international community does not respond, it begs the question of, just as you said, how much will it get worse before what?
Exactly. Now, Dalia, let me ask you, do you think the international community has failed Yemen?
Absolutely. We think about what Yemen needs just in terms of securing its population because of hunger. Because of hunger, they need $813 million, $1,813 million to sustain them for the next 6 months. This is looking in the face of a war that has cost $2.5 billion almost per year. And so if you look at the arms sales, for example, Saudi Arabia is the largest importer of arms today, with the United States being the largest exporter of arms. And we look at this trade nexus, but also look at the atrocities that are being caused. And we're just talking about hunger. We're not talking about education or infrastructure or airborne disease or waterborne diseases. We're talking about people dying of food. You're seeing that the international community is not only failing, they're actually feeding the war machine that continues it almost 7 years later.
Now, let me address the political side of this. It is not a new conflict. The war erupted in Yemen back in 2014, so roughly it's been about 7 years. What could possibly bring this seemingly never-ending conflict to an end?
We do know that for the past year, the Saudis have been trying to get out of this conflict. We know that the United Nations kind of gave them a reprieve because the UN has been caught in limbo in terms of the language against Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia does not want to continue this quagmire it created for itself in Yemen. But what's going to take is that both sides come to the negotiating table and really do it not just in good faith, but in the best interest of their population. So the Houthis, the Saudis, and the government in exile, whoever is left of it. We're talking about good faith negotiation to come to the end of this conflict, because what we do know is that no one is winning here. And the Saudis are continuing to look really bad on the international world stage. And the international community wants to rid itself of this. The United States, while no longer in the coalition, did support much of this Saudi endeavor and sees it as something it no longer wants to be a part of.
All right, Dalia Fahmy, thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate your analysis.